If you like the content that we're pushing out, please like, share, and of course subscribe. And let us know in the comments what you think about our videos. Like, why would you watch it and not tell us what's going on? And I hope to see you later on. Peace out. Hey, what's up you guys, and welcome to another Alternative Factuals video. And today we're going to do a little bit of a story time, where we're not going to talk about ourselves so much, but more or less I'm going to tell you a story in celebration of Luke Cage coming out in a few days. Now, this story I'm going to tell you is the New Avengers Luke Cage Town Without Pity that was written by Anthony Johnston and John Arcudi. It's a nice little story to kind of get an idea of how Luke Cage operates in terms of his business, in terms of Heroes for Hire, and how he went forward as one of the new Avengers coming in with Spider-Man and Ronin and a couple other heroes. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So jumping into the story, we already catch up with Spider-Man and Ronin, who are currently fighting the villain Hippo. Now, if you don't know who the Hippo is, don't worry, because he never really was actually important within Marvel Comics, at least not to my knowledge. So at some point, we see Luke Cage on the phone with his wife Jessica Jones, talking about someone who called for him at the house phone. Jessica then states it's the mother of Leotis, an old friend slash mentee to Luke Cage, who was, kind of studying him in his early superhero days for Heroes for Hire. Now, after Luke realizes what is going on in terms of the fight going on with Spider-Man and the Hippo, he quickly disposes of the Hippo shortly afterwards, just so he can kind of get home and talk with his wife. Now, after we transition to Luke Cage's home, he's then packing his bags, ready to go, so that way he can go see Leotis and his mother to see what's going on in Philadelphia, despite Jessica Jones kind of urging him not to go because she's tired of him kind of leaving in the last minute, especially because now they did have a daughter. Not that she's like upset with him because it's a good reason, but it's a little frustrating as a mother. Now we kind of get a flashback when Luke Cage kind of flashes back to when he met Leotis when he was a kid, and they both were in Harlem at the time, and this is when he was going by the name of Power Man, and he was doing his Heroes for Hire in the neighborhood in Harlem. And Leotis actually sought to be just like Luke Cage. He wanted to be every bit like him, and he was a very respected man in Harlem, and often a lot of people were very, very happy to see Luke Cage walking down the streets in Harlem. So after Luke packs his bags and kind of take the bus to North Philadelphia, Luke Cage takes the bus, and then he soon finds out that Leotis opened up his own Heroes for Hire office in Philadelphia. Now, during his walk around Leotis's office, he eventually runs into Hammerhead, who comes into the door. Now, Hammerhead is a villain that is known if you've seen Spider-Man the animated series in the early 2000s, the late 90s, but it's not really too important to get too deep into him right now in terms of this story. So during this walk around, they engage in a fight, and after a few blows are exchanged, Luke warns him to back off before he really hurts him, because in this story we actually can see that Luke is clearly more powerful than Hammerhead. After this altercation, Luke kind of goes in and check on Leotis in the hospital and speak with his mother to kind of see what's going on. And as we see in the panel, it reveals that Leotis is beaten pretty bad. I mean, like, his face looks totally different to what we're going to see later on in the story. Now, after some digging and kind of reaching out to Leotis's cousin, who happens to be able to hack into phone records and, do all that stuff pretty well, he's kind of explaining to his cousin that what is going on is that Leotis has been helping sell the heroin in his neighborhood in order for him to be able to help people in his community to avoid a lot of the conflict with a lot of the drug slingers that are going on in North Philadelphia. Basically having a deal with them where if he helps push the heroin, people will come to his business, and the drug dealers in the neighborhood won't see his business as a threat despite him trying to help people. So it's kind of a necessary evil in a sense to be able to help people. Now quickly, Luke deduces that he was actually beaten as a kind of to teach someone a lesson kind of thing in a territory skirmish that is currently taking place because there are two drug kingpins trying to take over North Philadelphia. Now, while in the hospital bed after Luke is kind of having this conversation and figuring everything out, Leotis gives Luke a name of someone who's further up the drug totem pole, only to find out it's none other than Alejandro Cortez, aka Lion Fang. And it's an old enemy from Luke Cage from his early Heroes for Hire days, so it's not really anything too deep. It's more or less just a way for us to kind of find out what's going on in North Philadelphia and kind of get a flashback to his old days for Heroes for Hire as Power Man. Now, after he's got some information from Lion Fang, we transition to the warehouse where these drugs are being prepared for shipment, but they don't really reference what's going on, so we're going to come back to that a little later on as I kind of discuss this. Now, in order to help Luke Cage, the cousin actually helps him fake his leaving by obviously getting him some bus tickets and making it seem like he's leaving town in order to take some of the heat off of the undercover work that he's going to be doing in order to help Leotis. Now, after some investigative work on Luke Cage's end, because a lot of people are not real aware that Luke Cage
actually has some sort of investigative skills that he's also kind of mastered and kind of gotten some information from Jessica Jones in terms of how to get information out of people and how to find out information from people when you're giving little to no information. After Luke discovers some information, he goes to the office of Woodward Himes. Now he is currently he's a kind of a entrepreneur in North Philadelphia who's currently buying property. He's a real estate agent, all that good stuff. So usually he goes to this businessman's office and he's kind of having a discussion with him and kind of trying to push for more information. And of course, Woodward Himes does not really kind of engage or give him the information that he's really needing, because then it would kind of incriminate him. So we eventually find out that Woodward Himes has been pushing drugs into these communities in order to lower property values to create ghettos. And once he lowers the property value, he will actually buy the value for cheap, restore it, and sell it for maximum profit in order for him to make more money. So let's say if you're selling a home for $30,000 and then drugs get pushed into the communities, then the property value can drop either to half or a quarter of that. And then he'll buy it for that. And then once he restores these areas, these neighborhoods, he will actually increase its value, and then people will buy it, and then he would actually get 5 times, 6 times more money than he actually put into the neighborhood, just because he was the one pushing drugs into these neighborhoods. So after Luke threatens him and destroys a shipment of drugs that was in the van that I previously mentioned before that I said we would go back to, then that's when Woodward Himes kind of gets a little nervous, and then he finally kind of gives in and really takes the threat serious. So after Luke Cage reveals this information, he comes out to his wife, who's watching the TV in New York after this whole thing. This is probably maybe a couple hours, and his escapades in PA and all that stuff. And despite her being upset, she couldn't really be mad at him because he did the right thing for someone he previously knew from back in the day. But kind of the moral of the story is that Luke Cage represents the people, where a lot of these drugs that were pushed into these communities and ghettos, even in New York City and different places like New Jersey, and even in North Philadelphia, like the story states, they do have situations where governments or even private corporations are pushing drugs into communities to get lower property values in order to sell for maximum profit. So if you like what I did today, please be sure to like, share, and of course subscribe, and leave a comment down below, and I hope to see you in the next one. Peace out, Daddy.